There we go. Now it's recording locally, so I can have a local copy in case the online does not work. So yeah, again, the disclaimer. So what I'm about to show you can be used in devious ways, and I am going to talk about it in devious ways because I think that it's important to, if one is to understand a great mystery, one must explore a broad aspect of things. So that does not mean that you should go out there and do the things I'm going to show you, not just for this class, but for any class. Obviously, you want to do them for good, not for bad. Okay? So, what am I going to be talking about today? Well, I am going to be talking about OSINT. So, what is OSINT? It is, by the way, just since I am recording, be advised that if you do speak, your voice will be recorded in that. So, and this will go on YouTube. So, I warn you. So, if you do want to speak, if you want to say something but you don't want it to be going on YouTube, you can type it. But if you say something, it will be on YouTube. So, just disclaimer for all of you. Okay? So, anyways. Now, to re-ask the question, what is OSINT? Anybody want to say anything? Or you can type it. So, okay. OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence. Okay? And what it means is that, unfortunately for you, fortunately for the bad guys, there is a lot of information out there in the world for them to use for whatever they want to use. Let's put it this way. Whenever you go and you register on a website, whenever you go and submit something online, purchase something online, use your information and put it online, even if it's secured and private, well, guess what? That secure and private is BS. It's only a matter of time until that information is probably going to get hacked and be public. No matter what people tell you, no matter how secure it is, the point is at some point is going to be breached. So, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go and register for Amazon, and I'm going to go and register for Gmail, and I'm going to go and register for Reddit, and I'm going to be very careful with my passwords, so I'm going to use the same username and the same password, because I trust that Amazon, Reddit, and whatever the third one is, I forgot already, are not going to leak my information. And guess what? They're going to try their best. But the fact of the matter is, it is only a matter of time until one of those three, or all three, given enough time, are probably going to be breached and that information is be spluttered out. That brings the question then, what information should you give them? None? Okay, give them none and then get nothing back. We can't live, you know, if you all seen Terminator 3, John Connor, who was trying to stay off the grid so that the future Terminators couldn't go back and kill him based on that information that's out there. He kind of did that, but what were the downsides? He couldn't use technology at all. He had to live like a caveman, essentially, and at the end of the day, the Terminators found him, so I guess it didn't work out. The fact of the matter is that we want to use technology, but that does mean that we have to accept certain degrees of risk, but more importantly, that means that we have to do some mitigation of that risk. So, how does that apply to security operations? One of the important things about security operations centers is that you are in charge of making sure not only that your company or whatever you're dealing with does not get hacked, but also to make sure that you mitigate that risk. So what is probably one of the highest point of weaknesses in a company or any sort of corporation? Humans. People, that's right. Yes, people. Typically humans, but who knows? There could be dogs and cats involved. But yes, people, because those people, you know, RSA, a bunch of algorithms out there, yeah, maybe someday they'll be cracked, quantum computing and all that, the hype, but that's pretty secure. There's a, you know, when you're coding something and you're somewhat making it secure, yes, there's going to be flaws, there's going to be issues, but why bother with that when humans are literally flaw after flaw after flaw after flaw? There's more flaws in human than there's things done right, probably. Case in point, look at the medical industry, right? They make a bunch of money because our bodies are flawed. That goes the same for our minds. People are the weak point of a company, of anything. Why? Because I don't need to do some fancy programming to hack into a company when I can just hack into people. How do you do that? Okay, go back to what I was just saying. All this public information you're putting out there, it gets breached. So for example, a couple of years ago, Target gets hacked. That was a big one. Credit card numbers, people's names, addresses, all this thing got put out there in the dark web. I'll talk about what the dark web is in a little bit, but just think of it on the internet. That information becomes open for anyone to use. Now, is it legal or is it not legal to use that information? I am not a lawyer, and none of this video should be used as legal advice because, again, I am not a lawyer, and even if I was, I'm not representing you. So don't try to rely on that. There is a document that I'm going to share with all of you that comes from the DoD. I believe it's DoD. Let me just pop it open. No, not DoD actually. The cybersecurity unit. So, computer and crime and intellectual property section. Legal considerations when gathering online cyber threat intelligence and purchasing data from illicit sources. This document talks about data breaches. So, when somebody gets hacked and that information gets posted on the internet, is it open for anybody to use, and is it legal for you to use or not? That's the gray line. If I'm a bad person that is trying to go online to look up username and passwords so that I can use those in other places, is that legal? Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I am leaning to say the answer is no, it's not legal. However, if you are somebody working for a security operations center that is checking on your people and making sure that those people are not leaking information that could be used to log into the system, I will give you examples of that later. Is it good and legal for you to go and check those people, maybe with their they sign some waiver and saying they accept to be checked for security reasons? Is it legal for you to go out there, maybe see these leaks, use them to make sure that they're not actually using the same password? I don't know. That's the gray line that this document talks about. So I am not going to interpret it. I am going to make this document public. Well, it is already publicly labeled, but I'm going to refer you to it. I'll post it on Canvas. I'll post links on the YouTube description of the video, and I'll post maybe on the chat later the document. But I recommend you to read that. Okay? What I'm here to talk about is if it's legal and you're ready to do that kind of stuff, how do you go on doing that? Okay? So, of course, that is already a gray line, so we have to be careful what we say and what we don't say. Okay? But going back to this, the point is that for a security operations center, this kind of information is useful. We want to know if the people in our company are flaws that need to be fixed. That sounds really weird and very non-humanizing, but yes. So maybe none of this makes sense right now. It will in a minute. I'm going to show you a demo of how we can do this. So, we can do open source intelligence and all of that, but we have to build up to that. So let's kind of go back to the basics of OSINT, okay? So, hold on, it's not, it's probably because it's minimized. Stand by a second. My tablet is not, stop streaming, I think, at some point. I think there we go, it's coming back. Okay, there we go. Apologies for that. So, OSINT, open source intelligence. So back in the day, like maybe 80s or something, you had private investigators, right? And what would they do if they wanted to investigate someone? They would follow them around, ask a couple of people. If you all seen the movie Nice Guys, they go in a bar, ask, have you seen this person? When was the last time they were here? Who were they with? That kind of thing. Maybe you follow them around. Maybe you see a license plate and then somebody can hook you up with the DMV that can tell you like, oh yeah, the owner of this license plate or this address is this. Maybe you know someone that, what else could it, like somebody that works with them, or you can see where they work, or maybe they, maybe when they pay one time they left a business card. You start kind of digging of what information is out there because people leave paper trails. Well, in computers, it's way, way bigger than that. They leave these digital trails that are everywhere. So what is open? Open source intelligence is any information that is out there and public, and you're not inherently breaking somewhere to get it. Examples of that: social media, that's a huge one. Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, TikTok, help me out here, VKontakte for those that are Russian or that area of the world. Whatever the new social media that Trump made, that's probably another social media. All of these are, you are posting public information. You're posting information that becomes public. You make a post saying, OMG, I just bought this new car, and you put your picture of your car, and in that picture of your car is your license plate. Bam, that information is now out there. And there's a saying that once you put something on the internet, you can't take it back. And it's really true. And you say, well, wait a second, I made that Facebook post private. Sure, it's private right now, but if there's a breach in Facebook, it's fair game if that goes out in the real world. You never know if that's going to happen. And frankly, I always think of it as a matter of time of when it's going to happen, not if it's going to happen. So to give you more of the OSINTs out there, I have a little graph from a website called OSINT Framework that a friend of mine showed me. So I'll pop that up actually first. So all of these are different categories of information that are out there, okay? And I'm going to tell you how we're going to use this information, but first we need to know what kind of things are out there, okay? So the huge one that is great for targeting people is going to be emails. Emails. That information is public because you go and you register on websites, you go and subscribe to things, you give your email to people, right? Just like you give your people your phone numbers, that information is out there just waiting to be looked at, okay? So where it can be found? Well, you have a lot of different places. So for example, you can find it as part of your work. So your work may post publicly your email address. So for example, if you work at UNLV, there's a UNLV directory where you can find all the UNLV employees and how to contact them typically. That information is public. From other leaks that have happened, of course, that information is going to be there associated with other things. You may have your email as part of some marketing thing. If you're starting to sell a product and you have a website, you have a way to contact them. You may have posted that email publicly on some sort of social media, but we'll go back to that, like to be contacted, right? But it's a huge piece of trying to find information is their emails. Images and video, I mean, don't get me started on YouTube, right? If you have a YouTube channel and you're posting things there, that is all information that can be used. How can it be used? Well, okay, suppose that you live in Las Vegas, right? But you keep that secret to everybody. But you go and you post a bunch of YouTube videos about Vegas. It's not going to take a lot of work to put 2 and 2 together. Sure, you could have just been somebody traveling to Vegas. Fair enough, but it's still a possibility that you are from Vegas just because you have videos on YouTube that are from Vegas, right? More importantly, you can analyze those videos and see more details about you. You have to look closely. This also applies for photography. So you have a picture, right? So you have a picture like you got a selfie, right? For example, my background, right? There's not a lot of things you can kind of pick up from my background, but suppose that I had a car plate up there. A lot of people like putting car plates right in their wall from like old cars and things. The car plate is going to have, not only is it going to have the car plate number, which is probably some historical information that I can look up, it's going to have a state name at the very least, so you can see where this person has had probably a driver license or has lived there to be able to have that car plate. So you can dig information from that. Okay? Sorry for the, you can pull some information from whatever my phone just said out there. But yeah, so images, you can dig information from images that people accidentally leak out there, okay? Social networks is just like, think about it. When you're trying to investigate someone, the best way to find out details is not just to investigate one individual, but to investigate their circle of friends and family. You can find out a lot of information because, again, the biggest flaw of a company is people, but also the biggest flaw of a family is people, right? You may be very careful with your security, but your cousin or your family, like close sibling or your parents may not be, and I can get your information from them without you leaking anything, because they go and post those public Facebook posts because they don't know any better of you, maybe some child pictures, bunch of things, bam, all your information is out there. And once it's out there, it's gone. Now, here's just a list of different social medias. We have Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, right? We all try to sell ourselves when we're trying to find a job. So we want to sell ourselves and give all these good features we have. Guess what? that's not just going to employers. That's going to bad people too. Bam, it's out there. Other social networks, let's see if that reminds me of other things that are out there. There we go. So MySpace is pretty old now. There's, I don't know. These must be like regional stuff. I don't remember any of them. But yeah, so social networks are a big one. Instant messaging, right? So there's messengers like Signal or some degree WhatsApp that are encrypted. So nobody can see your communication except you and the person receiving it, right? But here's the catch. Some of them like Discord or, for example, back in the day, Xfire, MSN Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger, most of those were probably not peer-to-peer encrypted, meaning that the servers could keep a copy of your messages. Discord is particularly sneaky about this stuff and probably keeps records of everything. They don't really just tell you what they keep and not keep. So anything you're saying, it's like anything you say can be used against you in a court of law kind of thing, is the kind of same situation here. Anything you say is fair game. Case in point, text messages. That's one of the worst offenders that anybody can see those, your telephone and everything. Go look at that case with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, right? And all the public text messages that came out of that. That's all public information now, and I bet nobody wanted that. So do you want your text messages out there? So there's that. Well, it's not whether you want it or not. It's if you've done it, it's going to be out there someday. Dating is also useful because you can see the preferences of the person. You can find out all this information from the dating websites because, you typically go and you put your hobbies, right? What you like to do, what's your, where you work at maybe, or what your education is. All of these things is all public information. So why do I want all this information? Because I want to be able to build an image of a person because I can find the flaws. For example, if I'm trying to get into somebody's work or trying to blackmail them, then all this information is going to come up with some dark stuff, and then you can use that dark stuff to blackmail them, and then gain access into whoever wherever they work for. You can also use it to phish on coworkers. So, for example, Timmy here is very secure centric, no information leak, but he has a coworker called Tommy. Tommy has all this public social media out. You can basically build his life. You basically know where he's going to be at all times from just all the public information. Well, I can build a really, really good Tommy profile, and then I can use that to trick Timmy into giving me some access to their work or credentials or things like that, and that's how you find the way in. This happens more often than you think. Okay? So anyways, I'll give you more examples of OSINT, but I want to jump out there and show you a demo of just how scary or cool, depending on how you see it, you can do this. So for that, I went ahead and I got one of my VMs and I installed Maltego in that. So Maltego is one of many tools out there that can be used to organize when you're looking at open source intelligence and essentially not having to do a million different things. But the same things you can do here, you can just do just straight out of Google, and it's very important that all of you know how to do that, not just to be able to do OSINT on someone or something, but also because knowing how to Google is literally like the most useful skill you can have as a CS person or just a tech person in general, because it's not just about finding information about someone, but finding information about how to do anything. Like literally, I could bet you that you could Google enough information to make a bomb or build a car or build a plane just from what is out there. So it is definitely one of the things that I will try to sort of, throw at you, is to make sure that you are at least decent at Googling things. Now, Google isn't just about like how to do this, how to do that, but being able to know what to type to Google, what to look for, what to ignore, and seriously, for some of you, like the basics, like, hey, there's things known as ads that you can block away, so you shouldn't click on an ad when you Google. Like, I have relatives who, when they go on Google, they look up like a website, like, oh, I'm going to look up Macy's or something, and they think that the first result, which is an ad, is the Macy's link, and it sends them to like Amazon's like seller for some random seller on Amazon, and you're like, really? but that's just the level where some of us are. So we have to all make sure we're on the same page there. Okay. But again, to get there, you know, it's more interesting if you see kind of like what you can do, and then you kind of get an interest. Okay. So Maltego takes away a lot of that manual stuff for a more interesting approach. Okay. So I already did this a little bit earlier because I wanted to make sure that I actually got some useful, actionable stuff out of this. So if this all fails, I'll just show you the one I did earlier. If not, then hopefully we get to see some neat things, okay? So one of the big ethical questions for when you're trying to demo this thing is, who do I target, right? Obviously, I have no malintention other than trying, well, no bad intentions, but I am trying to teach you all how this works so that you could potentially do it on a company that you're working for or that you're auditing, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just pick UNLV because that is where we are, right? So I don't have any intention for this, and what happens out of this is just what happens out of this, okay? So let's say that I'm a bad actor, okay? Well, the two scenarios. You are either someone that's auditing UNLV and you want to find their flaws so that you can help them improve them, or you're a bad actor that is trying to get into their systems to maybe install some ransomware, you know, make some money out of that, or just go ahead and do some sort of data breach to negatively affect UNLV, or yet again, to once you get the data, to, you know, to blackmail UNLV into giving you a payout or you leak the data, right? That's the basic name of the game when you're hacking, right? So we're going to start with the most basic, which is who we're targeting, which is going to be UNLV, right? By the way, this program is called Maltego, and there's a paid version and a free version. The free version is the community edition. All you need to do is register with a valid email, and you can download this, and you could tag along if you're doing it, or you can just try it out later on your own time. If anybody is tagging along, and you know, you can just write in the chat. Okay, so UNLV, right? Again, I am trying to ideally get some passwords so that I can log in and do some bad things to the UNLV servers, right? So I start out with just the domain, right? So what Maltego allows you to do is connect you to APIs that can get more information from you. Now, so let's talk a little bit about APIs. What is an API? So an API, so for example, let's say that you have a bunch of data, right? So an example on a personal level is I do clinical trial research. And so what I do is I go to clinicaltrials.gov, which is a government website that provides information on clinical trials. And somebody from the medical side is like, hey, can you find out how many phase 3 trials are happening on Alzheimer's disease? So one thing I could do is I could just go on clinicaltrials.gov and look that up manually under search bar and like look at each example manually and spend a couple of days doing that. Another way that I can do it is use the API that the website has. What it is essentially an automated system where I can send a query to the website in a very specially formatted way, and the website will interpret that as a search result and return the data in a nicely formatted fashion. You don't really need the specifics of that, but let's just say it's like some JSON or whatever, text file, whatever you can think of it, with the results. It's a way of automating it and a way of expediting it. So if I can make 20 different queries pretty quickly, one after the other, right? Now, clinicaltrials.gov is a government website and it's free, so you can do API requests, and there's probably no real limits. Not all APIs are free, however, because it costs money to do the searches and to hold the data, and you know, there's a bottom line. So a lot of the times, if you are trying to find information from a source and they have an API, it may not be free, or it may be only free if you use it like 50 times per month. So you will find that with Maltego, that you are able to connect it to different APIs, but not all of them are free. They have limits. So, you know, just the name of the game. But let's kind of go back a little bit around to the data breach land, okay? So in the normal scenario, you have this sort of ethical question of like, if I want to make sure that I don't have any compromised data out there, I need to look at the compromised data to make sure my name isn't there and my information is not there, right? But the act of me looking at it means I have to download it, means that it could potentially break the law. So what do you do as an auditor in that sense? You're sort of stuck in that dilemma, right? Well, you outsource it to someone else so they get in trouble and you don't. This is where APIs come in. you can connect to an API of a different company that has the breach data, and you can just request maybe like a specific name, a specific social security number, or a specific email, and you can either say, hey, just tell me if that data exists in there. Like, do you actually have a password for this email? Just tell me yes or no, but don't show me the password. That was like a liability thing. Or you can say, hey, just show me that password, but don't show me all the other 50 million passwords that were leaked. An API is great for that, because then you can just request and get that small piece of information, and that legal gray line of whether this is legal or not is kind of resolved, right? So on the auditor side, that's a good thing. On the shady side, I can just go get a copy of the leaked data, and then I can just, look at all the passwords myself. But then, of course, that's going to be probably illegal, and you could probably get in trouble for it. But there's that. Okay? So that's what APIs are. So it allows you to connect to other people and request specific information. And so Maltego is sort of a combination of those APIs, and they call them transforms. And so, for example, one of the really used ones is a website known as HaveIBeenPwned.com. That website allows you to search an email or a phone number and tells you if that email shows up in any of the data breaches. It doesn't tell you what other information shows up, it tells you what other information shows up, but it doesn't tell you what that information is. So it'll say like, your password is also associated to this email, but it doesn't show you what that password is. So I guess it's best of both worlds if you're auditing, right? So if you want to add that to Maltego, all you have to do is, I believe, go into Transforms, Transforms Hub, and then you have the ability to add anywhere. For example, let's say I want to do some flight tracking. So if I know anybody that flies planes and I want to stalk them to find out who they work for, things like that, I can just go ahead and install the FlightAware transform, and then I can probably just throw in a plane's tail number or a flight number, and I can get some information on that flight and potentially find out who owns the planes or those kind of information. So if it's a secret government plane or something. Okay? But in our case, the one that I recommend you'll get is HaveIBeenPwned, because that has a lot of good stuff out there. Okay? So anyways, that will come in useful. So what I'm going to do with this is I have my target, which is unlb.edu, and the first thing I really want to get is a list of emails related to that domain, because that's really what is going to find me more details about who works for that company, right? That's the first thing I need to know, is who works for there, what the people are at this company, because then I can find out who these people are. Somebody asked a question, does it work like identity protection matters? Well, if what you're asking is if this is good as a way to figure out your own privacy, then yes, you should do OSINT yourself if you're privacy conscious, to see what information shows up, because sometimes there's ways to remove it. There's never a way to fully erase it, but you can make it very dark, hidden in the corner, that it's very hard to find. No guarantees you can erase something from the internet, because frankly you probably can't, but you can make it hard for the amateur to at least not find. And frankly, hacking, like a lot of crimes, is a low-hanging fruit scenario. Hackers are going to go for the low-hanging fruit. If you're that low-hanging fruit, that's what they're going to go for first. If you are that really hard to reach fruit, they might go for you, especially if you're the one person they can find at a very valuable company they're trying to target. But more than likely, they're not going to go to you first, at least. So there's that. There's that silver lining, right? It's like somebody's trying to steal a car. You see 5 cars. They're all locked except one that's literally on and the door is open and nobody's there. And the criminal sees that and he's like, well, I mean, I could try to break into these and then have to turn on the car on and then get out of there. Or this car's literally ready to go and nobody's around. Maybe it's a honeypot car, but who knows? Let's go for it. Boom. Right? So you don't want to be that car with the door open, which is basically when you have the same password in 20 different sites and it's already been breached in the past. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit run transforms. Just let that run. But ideally, I would just want to do the domain ones. But I just want to show you what kind of stuff comes out with Maltego. So it's basically doing things like port scans and looking online for things with that domain name, email addresses, a bunch of stuff. You probably wouldn't want to run this like this because it's just too much information to process. At the end of the day, OSINT is a lot of triage involved. So like, you're gonna have tons of things to look at to the point that a human can't really look at them all. So you need to value what is worth checking first versus like second, third, and so on. So we got a bunch of stuff here, right? So what can we get from this? And by the way, because this is the free version, you are limited on the amount of stuff you get, so you would get way more things, especially for something as big as UNLV than here. But again, it's limited because it's the free version. So we're already getting from here a couple of employees, or who knows, it could be students. Some of these names I actually know, so it's kind of cheating in a way. That show up that are related to UNLV. We even have some phone numbers, so that's good information, good intel. We got a bunch of emails. So we got a bunch of emails from this. We got 33 emails from here. Good stuff, good stuff. These are all emails of people that maybe work at UNLV or worked at some point. These are really good targets that we can hit for. Obviously, these people work there, and we can find out more information about them. But I'm going to really focus on the emails because, frankly, I'm trying to get login information so I can break into their systems, right? So if you wanted to just go for something like the emails, what you can do is you can click on something, and then you can run a transform on just emails. So, for example, you could do PGP, but I'm going to go ahead and do email using search engine. What that means, it's going to Google UNLV and see what emails pop up out of that. And it would pop up the 33 we got already, but here it's just going to show them a little separate probably now. I guess it didn't. I need to expand this. It's fine. Well, I kind of want to see them expanded. Let me try that again. Oh, by the way, other interesting things I saw here. So for example, we have a bunch of different like subdomains within the UNLV network. So let's say I wanted to target these websites. So for example, I'm going to try to target this one. I could do like maybe a port scan. So for example, let's see what ports are open. So you just let it run with this and then give it time. Hopefully I didn't hit. Well, you can see the ports here, but I'm just waiting it out. Let's see. Give it a second. Here, I'm going to make this bigger for you by switching it over to here. Okay? So it's a little easier to see. It's easier to see, but I have to zoom in to see everything. There we go. Did that port scan ever finish? Well, it's showing me 2 ports, but I ran it on this one earlier. I ran it on this, by the way, because this is a website that I have, so I know which ports are kind of there. So I knew it should return some ports, but it's not doing anything before. By the way, you can click here to see the view of the website, so we can actually see what is in that website, and it'll open up Firefox. The website's not loading. That's weird. Is my internet working in general? Are you guys DDoSing me? I hope you're not DDoSing me. Or UNLV has discovered my attack or something. Hold on. You all can still hear me, right? So I'm not like, I didn't just go offline right now. Yes, okay. I don't know why the VM itself like lost connection. Temporary failing name resolution. Let me try to restart the VM. Let's try that. So let me save this one, which is the one that I know that I did earlier. So this is my backup. I'll save it there. So this is backup. So I can still give you the lecture based off on that one, but I kind of wanted to do it that now. UNLV is not able to track what I'm doing because I'm not doing anything necessarily illegal. I'm simply probing public sources of information. So for example, this name came from some sort of web search of Google. So like that information is something that is public. So I'm not breaking into any place at this point. Okay, so yes, you're anonymous to a certain degree. So the question is basically, is UNLV security able to track me, or am I hidden? So when you're running these transforms, either you're contacting the APIs, or you might be doing some direct Google research from your machine, but it's all public. So it's just the same as if I was just Googling somebody's name online. So nobody can see what I'm doing. There is a small trace of that, like Google has a trace. Your ISP provider may have a trace if you're not running a VPN or something. But it's very, very limited. Not to the point to raise any red flags. Like UNLV is not like freaking out and blocking me or trying to, unless Andrew told them something about me. So, yes. I'm just going to try to turn the VM off and turn it back on, like I said, and hope that works. So, yes, very sad. Maybe this thing is freaking out. Discard. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to flat out power off. Okay, so relaunch that. See where we go. This is why I actually did it earlier, because live demos, there's always the risk that something's gonna go wrong, right? It worked perfectly earlier. I was like, this is so easy. I'm just gonna show it. We'll be moving on through it, like breezing through it. But yeah, that's live. Okay. Actually, first let's just see if we have internet. Sure, let's click on these random links. The hunt for Julius Caesar. There we go, we have internet. So something got messed up. So at least I think we're back. We're back in business. Okay. Let's go ahead and just do a new one. Perfect. Okay, so domain. UNLV.edu. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get the emails. Using search engine. Okay, that's running, and here we go. So we got a couple of emails. Let's run another one using the domain. If there's duplicates, it'll combine them. There we go. PGP. The Whois one is not that useful because it's just going to give you like web admin and things like that. I hate it how it's combining them, but that's fine. And then, but here, let's just throw it in. Why not? Okay. So there's one I'm looking for particularly for a reason I'll show you later. Okay, yeah, let's just hope we have them there. Okay, so we have these email addresses, and so now, you know, I know these people potentially could work at UNLV, but if I'm trying to access the system, I'm going to need some passwords. So I want to see if any of these people may have been involved in a breach and used as their username or as some sort of email in the breach, their UNLV email. Because maybe those people are using the same password, right? So what I'm going to go ahead and here, and this is where I'm going to use the HaveIBeenPwned transform to look up if any of these are in any breach, right? So I'm going to say, get all breaches of an email address. All right, so I'm just gonna let that run. And again, in the past, it wasn't combining things. All good, it's separating it now. Ah, perfect. So now it's running, it's essentially using the API from HaveIBeenPwned, and it's looking to see if this email show up in the data breach. So for example, adobe.com or got hacked a couple of years ago, right? So a bunch of passwords and usernames were leaked out. So maybe one of these UNLV addresses is going to be using Adobe, right? There's no maybe, I saw that earlier, so that's why I'm bringing it up. I even see it there already, okay? So yes, and I'm still hidden, quote unquote. Okay, so I'm at 48%. I'm running through these. This is one of the 2 demos I have. The other one is really short though, so I think we're on track. We'll finish in the next 20 minutes. Okay, I like it. The more things that come out of there are the more pieces of information that I get to look at. Obviously, I am the good guy right now. I'm playing the good guy, so I don't need to see the actual passwords. But once we get there, I'll tell you where you would look if you wanted to see the actual passwords. Okay, so here we go. We finished. So we got some good stuff. So for example, this email address has been involved in a lot. As you can see, some email addresses have been involved in more than one breach, and some of them have involved in multiple breaches of the same company that got breached. So that's why the arrows crisscross. But just looking at this first one, they have been involved in a breach related to whatever this company is called Elasticsearch Sales, Net Prospects, yeah, that one. Adapt.io, that's a different breach. They were in the LinkedIn data breach. So that tells me that this person used their email address from UNLV to probably create a LinkedIn. Maybe they're a recruiter, or maybe they themselves were trying to, post for a job or something, right? So that's some good information right there. And so, yeah, so that gives you all of them. So you got a bunch of different breaches, right? So for example, here's that Adobe one I was talking about. So we got a bunch of email addresses here that, not a bunch, sorry, 2 email addresses. The ithelp@unlv.edu was using an Adobe account, and whatever password they were using was breached with that. Along with that is this person's email address. There's also these ones, and there's one I saw earlier that I kind of found funny. This Check one. Check is a website that you pay money to get answers to homework assignments. So I was like, why does this person have that, right? So I'm like, okay, so let's say I'm curious about Check, right? So I want to find out what information was leaked with the Check data breach. So I can go ahead and look up here details about that. So enrich breach domain. That's going to tell me what information was leaked. Not the information itself, but what it was leaked. There's a question about the colors. They're just to kind of help you. So like red is bad. So green is just what's selected, I think. Or not green. I don't know. I thought red was bad, and then gray is like whatever. I don't know what green is actually, so I'm not sure. Sorry. I wish you could tell me more, but we could probably Google that later. Okay, so this tells me, for example, Check, 28th of April of 2018. So that's about 5 years ago, or actually, sorry, 4 years ago. The text rental service Check data breach impacted 40 million subscribers, exposed emails, usernames, passwords, stored as an unsalted MD5 hash. And then blah blah blah. I can click on this to see the data was provided to HaveIBP by a source who requested it to be attributed to this person. Okay, so that's the person that exposed that there's a breach probably. So and then you can see it here as well. So we have names, we have an email address, which is where that email address is coming from. So that's why that address there was from there. There's also a username. So whatever username they use, I could get from there. There's a password. And it just tells me that it comes from HaveIBeenPwned. So what can I do now? Okay, so this person's only really been involved in one breach. So he could be a target of interest if it's someone higher in the chain of command of this company called UNLV. It might be worth looking at that password to see if maybe he's reusing the same password somewhere in the UNLV system. But because he's only in one data breach, he's not as much of a low-hanging fruit as someone that has been involved in like 20 data breaches. Why? Because there's an MD5 for this password, so not even like a plain text of the password. But for some of the breaches, it's plain text. So like if I have maybe like 6 or 7 breaches from one email address, and I can see those 6 or 7 passwords, I can find out if there's a pattern between the passwords. A lot of people their passwords are a combination of like some secret key they reuse and then something associated to the website they're working with, and that's how they build their passwords. Or maybe they just add numbers to the passwords. I can build a pattern of how they generate their passwords if not truly random, and that's how I can find out what their password is for their UNLV system. So this isn't particularly a low-hanging fruit unless I want to blackmail this person because they have a check account, and maybe this is a student, and then I can blackmail them about why they have a check account. Something of that scenario as well. Okay. You said my screen is blurry. Is it maybe like, is it small? So like, I just have to zoom in.
I think it's a problem with the resolution of your screen. I mean, you're just, yeah.
Is it clear now though?
It clears up I mean, I just assumed that you were kind of blurring it out a little bit for some reason, but.
No, I'm not blurring it out. It's the stream. The silver lining is that I am recording it in full HD quality, so you can rewatch the pieces that are blurry on YouTube at full resolution. So there's that. Okay, but definitely send me a message if I'll zoom in, because the bigger it is, even if it's blurry, it's more readable. Okay. But yeah, so let's look at another one. For example, let's look at someone that has like the biggest amount of breaches. These all seem to, oh, by the way, these are non-breached accounts, so I would stop caring about these emails because there's nothing I can really do with those. Who is really like leaky? The IT help has been in 4 breaches. Yeah, this one might be something interesting to look at. This I haven't looked at earlier. I stopped kind of here when I was doing things on my own. But yeah, so like IT help desk has been in a couple of breaches. So obviously I don't know who this person is or who they are, what they are, but they're in 4 breaches, right? So let's see if those breaches basically what they have. Again, if multiple of these have passwords, that's when I can say like, hey, maybe I can start coming up with password patterns, right? So this one does not appear to have passwords. It just has email addresses, job titles, social media, phone numbers, etc. What about Adobe? Because I saw they also had Adobe. Adobe has password hints. Those are great. Those are great because that gives me a lot of information about how to reset passwords for other accounts. So definitely good things here. And Adobe, I think, was a plain text leak. Yeah. Yeah, plain text. No, password hint is in plain text. I think the password's encrypted, but the cryptography was poorly done. So many were quickly restored to plain text. So probably plain text passwords too. You always take these with a grain of salt, as in like the company's trying to make them sound better than how bad the leak was. So perfect. I have passwords from this. I can compare these passwords with one of the other leaks that the same email is using. I can start to find out password patterns and so on. Okay? A great comment was made on the chat. So yes, passwords can only take me so far. Maybe the person has 2-factor authentication. If they have 2-factor authentication, that means that they usually get a message to their phone via an authenticator app or an SMS, which allows them to essentially approve or disapprove a connection. And is one of the things that is actively encouraged to prevent issues with data breaches. However, there's a workaround to that. So for example, if they're using SMS 2-factor authentication, all I have to do to work around that is basically just call their phone company, say I lost my, do some some engineering first to get some information about them, name, address, social security, maybe if you can. And then call the phone company and be like, hey, I lost my phone. I'd like to order a new SIM card. This is my name. This is my phone number. This is, maybe hints or whatever. I live here, here, here. Company's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Give us your address. You send it there to some address, not the real address, or unless you want to intercept mail. Mail theft is a big crime too, but you're doing crimes already. But not for an auditor. You wouldn't go that far. But yeah, you would get basically a SIM. It's called basically cloning a SIM, and now you can basically get their text messages. So SMS 2-factor authentication isn't perfectly ideal because you can basically clone their phone numbers. So you get a copy of their text, you get a copy of the 2-factor authentication. Bam, you work your way around that. Not ideal, but yes. more ideal is to use two-factor authenticators such as like Google Authenticate, Authy, or hard keys like the USB authenticators. The only issue with those, if they have a master password to access them online, and then you use that master password somewhere else and it gets leaked, or it follows a pattern that somebody can decrypt based on previous leaks. Okay? So anyways, the idea here being that I do the engineering, I found out the credentials, in addition to that, parallel to this, I can work through the other information that was available and find out somebody that has potentially useful access, and bam, get in there. So let me give you an example of something that just happened recently, like 2-3 days ago, and a friend let me know, and I was like, wow, and I kind of just tried to research, and obviously this is like an ongoing situation, so this information might change, but it just happened, and I was like, wow. And that is the leak of Grand Theft Auto 6 content, right? So I was like, wow, how did all this content get leaked? So apparently what happened is somebody did this on Rockstar, and they found out some employer name, and they found out their credentials to log into Slack. Slack is a lot like Discord in the sense that it's a messaging system, right? And you can log in from a browser. Well, Slack apparently can also hold some files. And once they log into Slack, they downloaded from the Slack server all these files that they went ahead and leaked. And it's all because somebody's password probably was reused. So from an auditor standpoint, what you want to do is you want to find out what these credentials are and see if they're reusing credentials, and bring that up with the employees to make sure they don't do that. You audit them, you yell at them, you tell them to set up two-factor authentication and all of these things. So now what if you're a bad guy? What if you're a bad guy and you do want access to the passwords? There's a lot of places that you can find them. There's obviously like pastes and things like that, but typically, while there are some places you can get them for free, most of them are going to want a small amount of money. There are forums where you can go. I'm not going to list specific forums, but they're very easy to find, where you can go in there and you can download, for example, the Facebook breach that had like names and I think emails, if I remember correctly. And yeah, you can, if you want, like the reason you would want to see this if your name was there, right? Before it was like in HaveIBeenPwned. Oh, it had phone numbers, yeah. And so a lot of people actually wanted to see it for that reason alone. But again, it's a really great land. But yeah, you go there, once you know that the data is out there, you just gotta go find a copy of it. You get the real passwords, bam, you're a bad guy, you can actually use them. You can also use the dark web. The dark web, what we know as the dark web is basically the Tor browser. Tor is like an internet within an internet. We can talk about that in a different day, how Tor works. But once there, you can find a bunch of these data breaches over there. Again, if you're someone that's working for the good people, the good guys, you typically will want to use an API that will at worst give you, for a specific name, the leaked information. But you don't want everybody's leaked information. It just puts you in a dangerous spot legally. Okay? Very quickly, because we are running short on time. One interesting tool that I found online to use for your OSINT practices, and I kind of want this to be the unofficial homework. Try to check yourselves online. Google yourself, per se, and see what information is out there. And if you find something interesting, you can share with us. Obviously, don't share with us your passwords and things like that, but maybe you'll find like, oh, wow, you can find out, where I live very easily. For example, if you own any kind of property, the property records online are very public out there. I can find out exactly where you live, how much you pay your property tax, how long you lived there, just by looking at the public records. I can also go to the DMV and get pretty much a copy of your driving records as well. That's public information. I can get your court records, which embarrasses some people, so they can be used for blackmail. I can get whether you are registered as a voter as a Republican or a Democrat very easily. That can also, you can be attacked for your political beliefs that way. So that's also really easy to get. Addresses and phone numbers, piece of cake because of all of these things. Where you work, if you particularly work for a government organization, all that stuff is typically public, like salaries and things like that. For example, all UNLV employees, takes 5 seconds to find out how much money they make per year. To find out that very quickly on highered.com or the HR website for each of the companies, or public education's Evenchi, in Nevada at least. But I think pretty much all states public information for all the government employees, including like state schools and stuff like that. Pretty much you can find everything about everybody, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can try to make it hard, but you can't hide it forever. So anyways, like I said, this is one quick sort of shortcut useful when you're doing that sort of Googling yourself. And it is called the, and this, by the way, this is a nice book. I'm trying to see if I can get a copy of, not this book, it's called Expert Privacy. It was recommended to me by someone, and I'm trying to see if I can get it to like read it, but it's not here. Actually, maybe I'm thinking of a different book, but anyway, I'll talk about that another time. But here, check out these tools. Hold on. Yeah, we're on the right page. So for example, this will give you a shortcut. So if you're trying to find out any information about anyone, for example, if you're just trying to like, let's say you wanted to, again, I don't want to stalk anybody right now. So, you know, let's just say John Doe, right? So if you just quickly want to Google someone, this will basically autofill Google, but it will also autofill whether they have a Scholar profile or other search engines and so on. Or social media, you can find out if they're using a specific username for social medias. If their Facebook is public, then you'll get direct access to that. Maps is really interesting. So, for example, if you want to get different views of somebody's house from all the different satellite companies, like Google Maps or Bing Maps or some other like non-US ones that are like the competition, you can just get the latitude and longitude from like Google, plug those in here, and then just get all these different views of a specific house. Great for that sort of intel. You can do image searches and things like that, shortcuts. The email one that I said before, you can just get a bunch of stuff from emails, from domains. If you're trying to like, you know, again, the domains are usually the first point of attack that you're going to do. You can look at this breaches one on your own. That's all I'll say about that. And yeah, so explore this website. I posted the link there. This guy has a great podcast as well. So yeah, that's all I have. So I'm going to stop the recording now so that we can have a more free discussion that's not being recorded. And then you can ask more questions. But for now, for the YouTube viewers, thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.